We've got a very special show for you this week. I'm joined in the studio by the Global Director of Motorsports at NISMO, Mike Carcamo.
Hey Sam.
Hi Mike. What is it you actually do?
Great question. Global Motorsports Director is basically in charge of all motorsports events for Nissan globally.
Everything.
Everything.
Absolutely everything.
Absolutely everything.
So, how did you end up doing a job like that? I mean, where did you start out?
I've always been a motorsports guy. I started actually before Nissan, I was in motorsports. And even before that, I was in motorsports. I think since I was about 12 or 13, it's the only thing I've actually wanted to do. So I started my career in motorsports in RC cars, which then became a fascination of racing. And then I became an engineer because of that. So I went to engineering school to become a race engineer.
So you know how to get your hands dirty?
Well, actually, I mean, that was the whole point. I think engineering is great, but working on race cars finally means working on race cars. And there's no better way to learn than to take apart Formula Fords and Formula Mazdas and anything you can get your hands on.
Do you ever get tempted to get your hands dirty in a GT3?
It's a little bit more complicated. So I let now the professionals do their job, but I like watching them because it is amazing to watch them work on the cars.
I mean, you really are in every corner of the world, aren't you? I mean, Nissan is active in pretty much every continent in terms of motorsport, apart from, the snubby places.
I think we might be the only ones that actually participate from, Australia, Japan, Europe with Blancpain, in the US with PwC, and as you said, Micro Cup, which has been an amazing hit.
One of the questions that comes up quite often is, why is Nissan in motorsport at all?
That's a great question, and one that's not so easy to answer, because really motorsports has two elements. One element is the fact that we want to promote our skill as engineers, but we also want to sell cars. So really a lot of motorsports has to line up between what the brand wants, what the marketing side wants, and what the engineering side wants, and the opportunity exists. Sometimes the category is not there for the technology, or sometimes the opposite, like the Micro Cup, where you have to create your own racing series to promote a brand.
The Micro Cup, when's it going global?
Well, this week in Paris, we just launched the new Micro, Generation 5, and we're very, very proud of that product. So I think off the back of that, we're going to look at the possibilities for the future in other markets.
So what we're hearing here is perhaps a little hint, perhaps not a promise, but a little hint of a new racing Micro.
Well, if there's a new car, that means, maybe there'll be a new race car.
So last week we told you all that Mike was going to be in the studio with us, and we've had so many questions from you, so we're not going to be able to get through every single question. Some of them I think Mike will answer, some of them will get a polite smile, and some of them might get us taken off the air, so let's see what happens. And the first question I've got here comes from Niels Blue Blick, and he asks, when are you guys going to start a space program, launch a NISMO spaceship, and travel to planet Nismo?
I think that one will get a polite smile and we can move on. No future plans for space travel yet.
That wasn't a denial though, was it? Well, more to the point. This season, we mentioned it's quite varied. Now, Darius Sulzg, however you pronounce it, has said, which race weekend this season has been the most challenging for you?
Oh, I would say Nürburgring. Nürburgring 24 was really something else. I don't know if, I'm assuming everyone watching the channel watched the race, but it was rain delay, snow delayed. We had cars getting pulled up off the grid. It was a really challenging race. And for a non-German manufacturer, to be honest with you, it's in generally a very difficult race. So I was very proud of the team and our accomplishments this year again.
That was a fantastic race. I mean, I can't remember if any of the GT-Rs got stuck going up that hill in the snow. But
we did.
Yeah.
Actually going backwards.
I can't remember anything like it. If you've not seen it, just look it up there's some details of that on this channel, so tune in for that. Next year, there's a big rule change in the LMP2 category, which has been dominated by Nissan for, ever. And it's an open engine category at the moment. It's going to spec engine. Can you tell us a little bit more about 2017 and the LMP2 type category?
Absolutely. Well, one, we're very proud of the success we had in LMP2, and our engine program is one of our strengths. And while we move out of LMP2, we move into LMP3 as the official supplier for engines. But we recently also announced a technical partnership with Tequila Patron and ESM to return to DPI racing next year, which will have in it a GT-R engine. So again, we continue with our engine program, and as most people know, the DPI program has as a base P2 chassis.
Exactly, so that's going to be quite an exciting program next year. Certainly seeing a Nissan engine car on the high banks at Daytona is going to be fantastic. What's WIME12? Simple, two-word question. Favourite GT-R?
R35.
Why is that then? Why R35?
Oh, I'm talking about the 18 model year, by the way.
The 18, have we seen that?
Yes.
Oh, that's the orange one that we've just seen a few weeks ago. Yeah.
I just feel it's the most refined car that we've made in the GT-R lineup. If you look now, whether it's the interior, the ride comfort, the external appearance, it is the best one we've produced, and the latest one is always the best one in my book.
I'm going to tell you, okay, let's see if you go the same way with the follow-up question then. Your favourite racing Nissan?
I'd have to go back to RC 390s, and I grew up in the States, obviously, and watching prototype racing. So that's by far my favorite Nissan.
You really are excited about Daytona next year, aren't you?
I am.
You really are excited about that. Moving on, the future of NISMO. And this is where things might get a little bit smiling politely.
Okay.
Christopher Michael starts with quite an easy question for you. He asks you, will the GT3 chassis continue to use the GT-R as its base model for the next 10 years or more?
That's a product question. Obviously, as a GT race car will always be based on the production car. So whatever the production car is, that's what will be.
There is a growing class in GT racing at the moment, isn't there? And I've seen a lot of growth in it. And we've seen the Z cars in the GT4 category. Is there anything going to happen in there with this great growth we've seen in recent years?
We built a GT4 car originally, and the GT Academy guys have used it before. And maybe we were just too early, having built the car several years ago. But I would say that I'm interested in that class and what opportunities. Now it's globally homologated, which means we can see the car in Europe, in the US, or anywhere GT4 rules apply.
Is that a little bit of a watch this space?
I'd like you to watch this space.
Excellent. I'm excited about that one. So here's one that follows on from a rumour we started rather naughtily here on the show recently. Patrick R asked a question, will Nissan ever run a team in the current WRC or World Rallycross Championships?
We never say no to anything. Never say never. I mean, one of my jobs is actually to look at the constantly evolving motorsports landscape. So I keep a giant list of every type of racing all over the world, and we watch its performance. Whatever the market wants, we're constantly evaluating. We evaluate programs all the time. So we never say never. There's nothing in the immediate works, so don't expect anything in 2017.
Speed Life asked a question that keeps coming in to us. Will Katsumasa Chiyo be racing in Bathurst in 2017?
You'll have to watch this space for that. Our 2017 announcements will probably come at the beginning of next year, but it's safe to say that Chiyo has a large following.
Yeah.
And he loves the track. So I wouldn't put it. I'd be optimistic about that.
Paul Duffy is asking a question about what do we know about the Sony PlayStation GT Sport game, the new GT version of Gran Turismo coming out, and will the 2017 GT Academy going to be based on that game? Well, I'm going to add to that. Can you tell us a little bit about the future of GT Academy?
Sure. So as you know, this year we launched the GT Academy with a beta version of the game, and we're working closely, obviously, with Sony and PlayStation in order to make that happen. So we're working hand in hand with them, and we're waiting a little bit more to find out the release of the official game. Okay. But our programs will be tied to their programs. So timing of the events is simply that, timing of the release of the games to coincide with the market releases and the online version of the game.
Now, Mike, we've got a good crop of GT Academy winners from currently racing this season, and I've spent some time with them. What's your opinion of the guys like Matt and these guys who are racing this year in the cars?
Yeah, very impressed. Obviously, I came in after they had won there, and getting to know them personally and watching their growth and evolution is quite interesting. Again, people fail to realize that we've taken people who had not raced previously and put them in a GT3 car in Blancpain, the toughest GT3 program in the world. And they hold their own, and they're learning every race. I mean, imagine every race learning something new. You know what's interesting is that we actually have a problem, which is that we've been almost too successful because we have very good drivers that come out of the program, and we can't always keep them as team drivers. But fortunately, it gets some exposure to other teams, and therefore they can continue to go racing, like Wolfgang Reip, who was at Bentley this year.
So Mike, one of the last questions we've got, and it comes from Jeremy J, and he said, question for the big boss, that's you. He's sure, he says, I'm sure that you'd agree that NISMO.TV is a pioneering format, but how do you think other manufacturers and racing departments in other companies, do you think they'll copy NISMO.TV? Do you think they could copy the whole way that NISMO goes about, in fact, everything it does with fan involvement and that side of stuff?
Well, I sure hope not. I think that's why we are unique. I think that we've been at the front, at the vanguard of whether it's GT Academy or it's Nissan NISMO.TV, and I think that we're going to continue to innovate and bring more topics and more content.
Now, I know you've had a meeting very recently discussing next year on NISMO.TV. Could you give us almost like a Comic-Con teaser of what we might be seeing on this channel going forwards?
I think it's all about more content and more engagement. Whether it's the drivers, whether it's the engineers, there's just a ton of content, and we want to bring that. We want to make it accessible. Nissan is about accessibility, and motorsport should be about that. So we want to have NISMO really be a part of motorsports, but in a bigger way.
So if you like that and you like the sound of that, guys, put in the comments, make more questions, and if you come up with another whole load of questions for Mike, we'll actually bring him back in at some point, or we'll go and track him down with a camera and make him answer some more questions about Nissan's space program. But we really do want those comments from you, and Mike loves reading them, and we know he actually watches every episode and reads them. But if you've got anybody else from the whole NISMO family that you want to speak to, please do just leave the comment, ask the questions, and we will track them down and make them answer. So Mike, thank you for joining us. I'm sure you've got some final words for the many NISMO.TV and Nissan NISMO fans out there.
I've super enjoyed it and would absolutely come back, so please count on that. But I do want to thank all the fans. I mean, we do this for you, and making this is a joy. It's fun for us, but we know that you enjoy it. So as Sam mentioned, please give us comments, please give us the feedback. We want to deliver content that's useful and enjoyable to you. So thank you, and we look forward to seeing you at the races this weekend.
It's the week in NISMO, and for those of you who didn't watch it, where were you? The Blancpain Sprint series came to its conclusion at the Barcelona circuit at the weekend, and there was a sensational opening lap in the qualifying race from Al Buncombe. It is well worth watching if you haven't done it already. We're going to have the full lap on board on this channel in the weeks to come, so hit subscribe and you'll be able to watch that in full, or you can watch the full race now on the channel. Meanwhile, down under, clearly having watched last week's NISMO.TV news, Nissan Australia have gone one better on their retro liveries. Now, if you watched last week's show, you'll have seen we were a little bit critical of the retro livery they ran at the last race in that series, well, mainly because it was just plain red. Well, Nissan Australia have realised it's 25 years since the R32 GT-R dominated the Great Australian Race with Scaife and Richards at the wheel and that fantastic and iconic red, white, blue livery. Well, they've brought it back, and it's now adorning a Nissan Altima, which will be contesting this year's race, and it is fantastic to look at. Just check it out. Coming up in the world of NISMO, we have this weekend a bit of a NISMO weekender, including the Pirelli World Challenge from Laguna Seca. That's the finale of that season. Let's see how Brian Highcotter and James Davison get on in the always evolving Nissan GT-R GT3. Super GT, my favourite. It's also live this weekend on NISMO.TV, exclusively in full from the Chang International Circuit, and it's going to be a thriller. Let's keep an eye on the GT500 class, where you'll have the red car and the blue car going at it as usual, amongst all the other GT500 cars. But also, Jan Mardenborough will be in action in the BMAX Engineering GT-R, and he is shooting out for the championship, going toe-to-toe with some serious opposition in that class, including those pesky mother chassis cars, though they do have a very nice GTA, as we have to call it, engine. Keep an eye on that live and in full on this channel exclusively. Now, we have a special treat for those of you in the United Kingdom. The BBC, British Broadcasting Corporation, will be airing an hour-long documentary on Sir Chris Hoy, the multiple Olympic gold medal winning cyclist, and his quest to win the Le Mans 24 Hours. Well, we'll be able to see that in full in the UK. If you're not in the UK, you might not really know who Chris Hoy is, but you should. And hopefully that documentary will be syndicated worldwide by our friends at Broadcasting House.